Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and I'm here to review the new documentary, The War and Peace of Tim O'Brien. And this is from director Aaron Matthews and is focusing on writer Tim O'Brien, who had written The Things They Carry, which is actually something that I read in college. And is really focusing on Vietnam. Tim O'Brien is someone who fought in Vietnam and has very strong opinions on how we should never have been there and what was the point of going here and killing all these people for what purpose, and bringing that perspective home and writing this novel. And now this documentary focuses on his process trying to write basically what's going to be his last book. And he hadn't written since like 2002, ever since his children were born, so he's trying to come back into this process and realizing how much harder it is. And which is interesting because this documentary works on the level of you're learning who this man is and the influences he had and just into the life of Tim O'Brien. But it's also taking you on a story of a man up against odds through the creative process, trying to create something. So not only is it working on an informative documentary level, but it's also working on a relatable narrative as somebody like myself who does want to create things and who does write. Obviously, I'm no Tim O'Brien, but I understand the process and the struggle when you are trying to create something and might not be there. I've experienced that trying to write scripts. Some of them just came to me, and it just kept growing and coming to life as I put the words down and morphing and coming to realization. And others, I'm just like, I can't put two sentences together to put this story, these words into writing. And you get that in this documentary. You see the struggle of Tim O'Brien as he's doing this process. Now that he has his wife, who you see throughout the process, and you get her perspective, which is interesting. And you can tell not everything's perfect in this relationship, and how hard it is when he is writing, because she even mentions like Christmas Day, birthdays, anniversaries. He's writing. He's lost in that world and that creative process, and he hasn't done that in years and is trying to get back into it. And she even talks about, which it's so interesting that you get his perspective so much because the documentary really focuses on him. Matthews spends that time speaking directly to Tim O'Brien throughout the vast majority of this film, but you get those moments talking to his wife where you might get some perspectives that he might not be willing to admit. Which it's not to say that he doesn't show the bad and the ugly of his life and his perspective on things. You get that. You have this one moment where he's at a gas station just so frustrated, he like puts his credit card into the receipt slot. And you can tell like he's just like, I wish I could go home, go back into bed and wake up all over again and start this day over. It's like he has those moments and you see those struggles, or him getting frustrated with his car, or towards the end of this film he gets really sick and you see him and he's just like, this is and you're now witnessing me, my final story, my death, and stuff like that. But you also get to the perspective of his wife, who sheds a bit of a different perspective on things. And she's like, he tries to do a page a day, but some days he gets two sentences together. And you get that struggle, and you can tell she's trying to be as supportive as possible. You see him taking his frustrations out sometimes on her and his kids. There's an interesting dialogue between him and his kids and his wife about trying to limit screen time, and he's being so aggressive about it. You can see the mind space that he gets into when he's writing, and his wife speaks upon that he might come home from like weeks of traveling and presenting and interviewing and just be in a bad place and aggravated and not somebody like you want to interact with. But you also get not only him as this like the struggling artist, you get to see him and what made him famous and so influential about his perspective on things. There's a really powerful moment where he's sitting at a discussion group with other Vietnam vets, and he has a very different perspective than some of them do. His very pointed and very opinionated and very strong and determined, and that's something that Tim O'Brien definitely has. You see him every 5 seconds lighting up a cigarette, and he's just like, I know, my kids are going to be 20, 26. I'm not going to be around. And I'm definitely, because I smoke, not going to be that around that much longer either. And he knows these things, and he just is a personality, and the film captures that so well. This might not be the most high-tech or well realized in terms of like technical perspective. This isn't something that's, as a cinematic experience, something engrossing in that way. It's more, he's just interviewing, he's following this guy around with a regular camera. There's nothing flashy about it. It feels pretty low budget in terms of a documentary, but there's enough of Tim O'Brien in this film to make it engaging and interesting. Where for this hour and 23 minutes, there's definitely parts that get you into a lull and lag a bit in terms of like the day-to-day of his life, but there is some really intriguing things. You get this perspective on this artist, and it's definitely worth checking out, at least for experiencing this creator through his process and that struggle, and getting to know him, his perspectives, his influences, and his life, all rolled into one. And I would definitely check this out. Tim O'Brien's a very intriguing man, and worth checking out his film. But those are my thoughts on The War and Peace of Tim O'Brien. Let me know what you think, and let's talk some movies. But thank you as always for tuning in and supporting your Wasteland reviewer.